everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Shell and Tell. My name is Leah, and I really love the Back to the Sea Society, and I really love squid. So today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking all about squid and how to observe our favorite stuffed animal at home like a scientist or a biologist would. Now, of course, my favorite stuffed animal is my squid. And so if you're watching from Nova Scotia, this is a type of squid which we have in the waters around us. This is a short-fin squid, and short-fin squid can live in areas like Nova Scotia to Newfoundland and all the way down to Florida, so they live in a really broad range. But if you're watching from somewhere else, you have a type of squid in your waters too. It just might be a little bit of a different species. Now, when we're observing a stuffed animal like a biologist would, we need to pick an area that we want to start studying. So I'm going to start with the eye because on my stuffed animal, the eye is really big. It's really noticeable. And so in squid, they have something called a camera-like eye. And what that means is that they're actually pretty good at seeing compared to other types of fish and other types of marine animals. Now, their eyes aren't quite as good as a human's, but their eyes really are quite big compared to their body, and they generally are pretty good at seeing. Now, next I think we should talk about how the squid actually swims. So do we think that it kind of kicks its tentacles doggy style? That doesn't seem quite right. So if we look up here, we have these fins at the top. And so these fins, they don't really flap them, but they kind of use them like an airplane to guide where they're going in the water. And if we look down here, we can see these things. And so what the squid does is it brings water up into its mantle, up in here, this little flap, and it pushes it out its siphon. And so what that means is the squid swims by something which we call jet propulsion. And so it kind of swims in short bursts by bringing the water up, pushing it out the siphon, and even though it does it that way, it can still swim pretty fast, but usually in that burst-like motion. Now, next, I think we should talk about what the squid likes to eat. And the squid's favorite food is pizza. No, wait, that's my favorite food. So what the squid actually likes to eat is the squid likes to eat generally kind of an array of stuff. So they'll eat things like crustaceans, other types of fish, and just all sorts of different food that's found in the water. Now, one thing that's really cool about how the squid eats is it does use its tentacles, and my squid doesn't have it, but in real life, there would be little suction cups on the tentacles which help it eat, and its mouth down here kind of looks like the beak of a bird. And it doesn't really look like the mouth of other fish or like a human mouth at all. So we do call it a squid, the squid's beak or the beak of a squid, but it's not quite similar to a bird's beak, but it's still pretty cool. So something that we can't see in my stuffy, but we do know is true, is that squid can spray ink. So squid will have a little sac inside filled with ink, and when they're afraid or trying to get away from something, they can spray that ink. Now, the ink can confuse their predators because it makes their predators not really able to see anymore, and it also confuses their sense of smell as to where the squid is gone. But squid don't like to spray their ink all the time because it takes a lot of energy for them to be able to make the ink, so they only want to use it when they really need to. Now, as we can see here, we talked about kind of the areas where a squid lives, but the ocean can be really deep, so there's different areas where a squid can live within the water. Now our squid, the short-fin squid, kind of lives in this upper area, usually between 200 to 600 meters, so not super deep compared to other types of animals. But what it does do is something called a daily vertical migration. So the squid will start, or well, maybe not start, but it'll usually be in deeper waters and for shelter, and it'll move up into warmer areas, generally where there's more food because of the sunlight. But we have squid that can live really deep. So here we have a giant squid, they can live super deep, and a vampire squid, which can also live really deep. And the Dumbo octopus, which would be kind of like a cousin of the squid. But these deep sea animals, scientists don't know a lot about because they're pretty rare and they're really hard for us to study. So they're pretty cool. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to get you to grab your own stuffy and we're going to look at it like a scientist would. So we can look at a whole bunch of different things, but generally I like to look at, what is the color? How does it feel? For me, the eye feels pretty different than the rest of the body. How big is it? How tall? Maybe how wide it is? Does it have an ears, nose, mouth? Is that similar or dissimilar to a human? Does it have fins, tails, legs, arms? All sorts of different things. What do we think that our animal likes to eat? And where do we think that it lives in nature? So there's all sorts of different things that you can look at, and what scientists like to do is we like to write it all down in a notebook. And we'll write down all of our observations, and we'll usually draw a picture beside it, which we like to call a scientific observation. So you can do this at home for one of your stuffies or all of their stuffies, whether it's marine related or a bear or anything. Thank you so much for watching today. And one thing is I have never named my squid, so if anyone has any suggestions for a name, feel free to drop it in the comments below. Thanks for watching.